Okay, so today I'm going to show you how to make homebrew, specifically one of my favorites, Big Sky IPA. I'll just go over a few of the things that that you'll be using for this recipe, and I'll top it out. It calls for 9 pounds of light malt extract, which is this. Austin Homebrew puts it in a bucket. It's real handy. I typically like using the liquid malt extract or the dry malt extract because it's not nearly as messy. The next thing is going to be the specialty grains, which is a half a pound of Crystal 60 and 1 pound of Crystal 80. They didn't have Crystal 80, they had Crystal 75. It'll be close enough. So I'll be mixing these together. Those will be my specialty grains. Usually when you order these in a kit, they'll come in a mucilin bag. Since I had to put the recipe together myself, I don't have one, but I do have a grain bag. So it's just like a nylon bag, works just the same except it's reusable. Specialty grains, basically they add color, they add flavor, they have unfermentable sugar, so they'll add some sweetness. They're not completely unfermentable, but generally they're not fermentable. So anyway, those are the specialty grains. And then we have our hops, which this one's calling for a total of 5 ounces of Simcoe hops, 1.5 ounces of Crystal hops. These are my Crystal hops. They usually come in 1 ounce packages. These are from Austin Homebrew. They're vacuum sealed. They'll last a long time. Keep them in the fridge. One of the problems I've ran into with this recipe is Simcoe hops. Nobody has Simcoe hops. They're kind of a proprietary hop. All the breweries like Big Sky, I believe Dogfish Head actually uses Simcoe hops too in their 90-minute IPA. You can't get them. They only produce a certain amount of them. The breweries will buy them up. So I've been looking for probably 3 or 4 months for Simcoe hops. Couldn't find them. They were finally, usually they do the crop harvest around September in the northwest United States, around Oregon, Washington. They do some in the northeast too, but these are grown in the northwest. Found a place that had a whole pound of them. I bought a whole pound of them because you can't get them. So I'll be having to measure my hops out of this pound. But basically that's it. The only other thing left is your yeast. You saw I made a little write-up on how to make a yeast starter. You can see my yeast starter back here in the background. So if I can get close, you can see it's bubbling out of the top. It's actively fermenting right now. So right now is the time that we want to be using it. So I'm going to go ahead and get started brewing. And I'll give you kind of a breakdown on the ingredients, when you add them, how to add them, and hopefully by the end you'll end up with something like this. Okay, I'm going to start off with explaining the ingredients a little bit. Like I said, with this recipe it calls for 9 pounds of extra pale malt extract. This is a liquid malt extract. You can see there they measured out, put in this nice little bucket, and you can see this is almost just like a syrup, except it tastes really, really good. And this is basically, this is the base of your beer. This is what the yeast is going to be eating, and of course it gives its flavor, a lot of its flavor too. So this is that's the base. That's what basically you're drinking. I'm going to show you what dry malt extract looks like and why I generally don't use it. This is dry malt extract. Does the same thing. You actually get more bang for your buck with dry malt extract. It's a little more concentrated. It doesn't have the water in it that liquid malt extract does. So anyway, it's basically just a powder. Very sweet. As soon as it comes in contact with any moisture, it gums up. You can already see I had a little bit of moisture on my fingers. It's already gummed up. So that's when you're doing your boil and you're trying to dump dry malt extract into your brew kettle. It tends to want to clump up real bad as that steam hits it. and then you end up with clumps. You want to get those dissolved. So that's why I tend to like to use the liquid malt extract. It's easier for me to deal with. The next thing we're going to look at is hops. Generally, I use pelletized hops. You can get whole leaf hops. That's what pelletized hops look like. They almost look like an animal feed. But basically, they grind the hops up, form them into pellets like this. They're easier to deal with. Whole leaf hops tend to they're harder to mess with in your fermenters, and they're just bulkier. They soak up a lot of beer. Pelletized hops, once they do their job, especially if you're dry hopping, they tend to sink to the bottom and stay there for the most part, and you don't have to really deal with them as far as when you're trying to siphon your beer out. So to point out too, so if you can see on the package here, I'll get my camera to focus. It tells you a little bit about it. This crystal, it's got 4.3% alpha acids. Pay attention to that once you start making your own recipes, and there's tons of resources online you can look up and see what hops have what flavor, produce what flavor, what the alpha acids mean, and how those will affect the flavor of your beer. So anyway, these are a low alpha acid hop. These are going to tend to add more aroma and a little bit of flavoring rather than bitterness. If you look at the Simcoe hop, that's going to be the base bittering hop for this beer. You can see the alpha acids 12.2% compared to this crystal hop 4.3%. Simcoe hops are going to give it that unique citrusy flavor, but it's also going to be used for our bittering hop. If you've ever had Big Sky IPA, you'll know that it's fairly bitter, but not overpowering bitter. And I don't know, it tends to be a real good clean beer, and one of my favorite. So this is basically what we're going after today, and hopefully we can replicate it.